Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a poor miller who dreamed of a better life. Desperate to impress the king, he wove a grand lie that his daughter could spin straw into gold. The king, a man of greed and ambition, heard of this and summoned the miller's daughter to his grand castle. She stood before him, trembling, as the king led her to a dark chamber filled with bales of straw and a simple spinning wheel. "If you truly have such a gift," the king said, his voice heavy with doubt, "then by sunrise I expect all this straw to be turned into gold. If you fail, you shall pay with your life." The heavy doors slammed shut behind her, and she was left alone. She gazed at the spinning wheel, her hands shaking, for she knew no magic, only the cruel weight of her father's deception. As despair filled her heart, a strange sound echoed in the chamber, a peculiar chuckle, high-pitched and mischievous. From the shadows emerged a tiny, peculiar man with twinkling eyes and a crooked grin. "Why do you weep so, dear girl?" he asked. She explained her plight, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ah, spinning straw into gold? A simple task for me," the little man said, rubbing his hands together. "But nothing is free, my dear. What will you give me in return?" She had nothing of value, save for the delicate pendant around her neck, a gift from her mother. With a heavy heart, she handed it over. The little man clapped his hands, hopped onto the stool, and set the wheel in motion. As the spindle spun, the straw vanished in golden glows, reappearing as shimmering threads of pure gold. By dawn, every last bundle had been transformed. The king entered and gasped, his greed overtaking his astonishment. "Magnificent!" he cried. But his hunger for gold had only grown. That very night, the girl was taken to an even larger chamber, filled with even more straw. "If you value your life," the king declared, "this too must be gold by morning." Tears welled in her eyes once more, and just as before, the peculiar little man appeared. "I will help you again, dear girl," he said, his eyes glinting. "But what will you give me this time?" With reluctance, she offered the silver ring from her finger. The man accepted, and once again, the wheel spun, the straw disappeared, and gold filled the chamber. By sunrise, the king stood in wonder, yet still, he was unsatisfied. A third time, he led her to a chamber, vaster than the last, filled from floor to ceiling with straw. "If you succeed," he said, "you shall be my queen. If you fail, you shall be no more." For the third time, the little man appeared. "Now, what will you give me?" he asked, grinning. She had nothing left, no jewelry, no possessions. "Then promise me," he whispered, "your firstborn child, once you are queen." Her breath caught. She hesitated, but the fear of failure was greater than the distant thought of a child. Slowly she nodded. With a gleeful cackle, the little man spun the wheel one last time, and by dawn, the room gleamed with gold. The king, now rich beyond his wildest dreams, kept his word. He made the miller's daughter his queen. For a time, she lived in happiness, the dark promise forgotten, until one day she bore a beautiful child, a prince as fair as the morning sun. But on the very night of the child's birth, the eerie laughter returned. The little man stood before her once more. "A deal is a deal, dear queen." Her heart filled with terror, she begged and pleaded, "Please, take all the riches of the kingdom, but spare my child." The man shook his head. "No treasure can match the worth of a firstborn child." Desperate, she collapsed in sobs. Finally, the little man tilted his head. "Very well, I shall give you a chance. If, within 3 days, you can guess my name, you may keep your child. If not, he shall be mine." With that, he vanished. The queen summoned messengers, scholars, and scribes. She scoured the kingdom for names, long, short, ancient, and foreign. On the first night, the little man returned. "Have you a name for me?" he asked. She listed dozens. "Is it Tobias, Edgar, Leopold, Ulrich?" No, he laughed. "Try again tomorrow." The next night she recited even rarer names. "Is it Bartok? Zephyr? Thaddeus?" Wrong. The little man cackled, vanishing into the night. The queen's heart pounded as the final day dawned. That evening, a royal scout returned with news. Deep in the woods, he had overheard a strange song by a crackling fire. Tomorrow, my prize I claim. The queen will fail to guess my name. For none but I know, none can tell, that Rumpelstiltskin is my spell. Armed with this secret, the queen waited. That night, the little man appeared, grinning with anticipation. "Well, dear queen, your final guess?" She feigned uncertainty, murmuring false names. The little man grew impatient, rubbing his hands in excitement. At last, she met his eyes. "Is it Rumpelstiltskin?" His face twisted in horror. No, how could you know?" he shrieked, stamping his feet in fury. He stomped harder and harder, until the very ground split open beneath him. With one last howl, he vanished into the depths of the earth. The queen, breathless, clutched her child. And from that day forth, she ruled wisely and well, with no shadows of broken deals haunting her kingdom ever again.